They called her Ghost behind her back. Not because she was pale or spooky, but because she moved through the base so quietly, many didn't even know she existed. No one remembered when she first showed up at Falcon Ridge Flight School, but her name, Lieutenant Aria Kim, always hovered near the bottom of performance boards, hidden under layers of more popular names with louder reputations. She didn't laugh at the mess hall banter. She didn't join the late-night poker games. She trained. Endlessly. Silently. And on this day, she stood on the tarmac under the searing Nevada sun, helmet in hand, waiting. Ghost, huh? A voice behind her snorted. It was Lieutenant Kyle Gator Nunez, a top ace trainee known more for his barrel rolls than humility. You ever actually fly, or just haunt the hangars? Aria didn't turn. She tightened her gloves, her voice low. You'll see. That a threat or a promise? Gator chuckled, tossing a protein bar to another trainee. Maybe today's the day the ghost vanishes for good. They were waiting for the day's flight assessment assignments, except this wasn't just any assessment. It was the Hydra Run. A classified simulation that tested multi-threat airspace navigation, requiring lightning-fast reaction under maximum stress. Historically, only test pilots or combat veterans even attempted it. This year, for the first time, 3 elite trainees would get a shot. Aria wasn't supposed to be one of them. She wasn't even on the original list. Until last night, when Commander Elias Hart personally added her name. No one knew why. Gator's laughter was interrupted by the screech of boots on gravel. Commander Hart's voice cut through the idle chatter like a whip. Listen up. Assignments for Hydra Run are posted. Final prep in 20 minutes. A rush of boots scrambled to the bulletin board. Gator smirked. Come on, Ghost. Let's go see which real pilots made the cut. They reached the board together. 3 names were listed. L.T. Nunez, Kyle Gator. L.T. Harris, Damian Nightfox. L.T. Kim, Aria, Ghost. The murmurs were immediate. She made it? No way. She's never even. That's gotta be a joke. But Commander Hart stood behind them, arms folded. It's no joke, he said coolly. Anyone got a problem with that can report to me. Aria looked up, met his eyes. He gave her a small nod. Gator stepped back, jaw tight. Fine. But when she crashes 5 minutes in, don't blame me. Hart didn't respond. He simply turned toward the control tower. Aria stared at her name on the board. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a breath. Not because she was nervous, but because the ghosts of the past had finally caught up. Aria walked alone toward Hangar 6, the old tarmac echoing under her boots. Each step triggered flashes in her mind. Her father's stoic face the night before he deployed for the last time, the sound of his boots walking out the front door, and the silence that followed when the knock came 3 weeks later. Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Kim had flown Black Hawk medevac missions for over a decade. The Army called him a phantom behind enemy lines, silent, surgical, unwavering. But Aria never heard that from him. He spoke little of his service, only telling her once, "If I don't come back, don't look for medals. Look for purpose." She was 12 when they folded the flag and handed her a polished box with his tags. Now, 16 years later, she still wore one around her neck. The other stayed in a hidden compartment under her flight seat. Inside the hangar, the mechanics were prepping the simulator, the most advanced virtual aircraft system in the U.S. Air Force. Unlike standard trainers, Hydra Run used a classified neurofeedback loop, adapting threats in real time based on pilots' stress responses. It was, effectively, a test against yourself. Aria approached Technician Morales, the only one who didn't flinch when she entered the sim bay. "You sure about this, Ghost?" Morales asked, running diagnostics on the interface. "This thing has chewed up pilots with 10 years of experience. I've studied it," she replied, unclipping her helmet from her harness. "Studying and surviving are 2 different things." She met his gaze. "Not for me." Morales sighed, motioning to the cockpit ladder. "You're the quietest damn pilot I've ever met, but also the most prepared. Good luck. She climbed in. Across the base, Commander Hart stood on the upper-level observation deck, watching. Beside him was Colonel Isaac Rourke, commander of the base and the final authority on all pilot assignments. You sure about this? Rourke asked, arms folded. She's not exactly celebrated. Hart's voice was flat. She doesn't need celebration. She needs sky. Rourke scoffed. The Hydra Run isn't a sky, it's a meat grinder. Gator's already acting like he's won. She's going up against ego, experience, and fear. One bad decision, and the system knocks her out. Hart didn't blink. Then I suggest you watch closely. Aria Kim didn't get here because she talks. She got here because she listens. To what? Hart turned away. To ghosts. Back inside the simulator, Aria sealed the cockpit. The surrounding screens flickered to life, rendering a 360-degree panoramic view of high-altitude cloud banks, dense radar zones, hostile airspace markers, and pulsing digital threats. Simulation initializing, Morales said through the intercom. Hydra Run, Scenario Bravo 9. Mission, Recon Extraction. Multiple threats. Conditions deteriorating. Good luck, Lieutenant. Aria flexed her gloved fingers over the control stick. Her father's dog tag shifted against her collarbone. She whispered under her breath. Let's fly, Appa. Then the storm began. Wind howled across the virtual fuselage. In the Hydra Run sim, environmental physics were weaponized. Not just turbulence, but the kind that simulated hurricane force gusts punching the aircraft off course. Crosswinds slammed her virtual F-35 into a right drift as artificial lightning struck dangerously close, triggering system alerts. Threats incoming. Altitude variance increasing. Adjust course. Morales read from the control screen. Aria didn't flinch. No sudden movements. She knew this part, the Hydra's first test, chaos introduction. Throw off the rhythm. Make the pilot react instead of act. But she had memorized the Hydra's rhythms, studied over 600 hours of declassified simulator footage, diagrammed wind shear behavior, and created her own flight patterns for each scenario type. Her hands moved smoothly, adjusting rudder, counterbalancing ailerons, compensating for wind drift using calculated throttle bursts. The aircraft righted itself within seconds. From the observation deck, Colonel Rourke raised an eyebrow. She compensated for 90 miles per hour crosswinds in less than 8 seconds. Gator took 13. Hart didn't smile. Keep watching. Down in Hangar 5, Gator watched the telemetry feed, his jaw tightening. Beginner's luck. Next phase. Hydra launched cognitive interference. The onboard system projected false radar signals, 3 decoy enemy fighters closing in from opposing angles. A younger pilot would evade. Aria did not. She pulsed her flight systems into passive mode, slowed below radar lock, dropped altitude to hugging range over the virtual terrain. A canyon appeared, low and winding. Risky. But precisely what she wanted. Terrain masking, Morales muttered, watching her signature vanish from enemy radar. She studied Black Hawk evasion techniques. Commander Hart nodded silently. Because that was what her father had done. Infiltrate hostile airspace, retrieve wounded allies, exfil under pressure. Aria had spent nights reviewing his after-action reports, some redacted, most not. Not to relive his glory, but to understand how he thought. In her quarters, she had sticky notes plastered over the walls. Never be predictable. Know the wind like it's your wingman. Escape isn't retreat. It's victory on your terms. A warning klaxon buzzed, Phase 3. Munitions malfunction. Navigation failure. Communications blackout. In the cockpit, lights flashed, controls vibrated violently. Morales leaned toward the screen. Here comes the kill shot. Most candidates panic here. Aria leaned into the chaos. She didn't need nav. She flew on instinct, visually mapping the simulated terrain, timing altimeter readings by feel, countering the malfunctioning munitions by rerouting power to boost engine thrust. Then came the part Morales dreaded. The final turn. Hydra's last trap, a 3-axis spiral dive through an urban canyon with decoy civilians below and a single target, an extraction point, hidden in the simulation's blind zone. Only 4 pilots had ever completed this segment without casualties. She'd studied it for months. And she was about to attempt it, while her simulated aircraft was still glitching. Morales whispered, "Don't do it. It's not worth the score." But in her mind, it wasn't about a score. It was about proving something to the man who never got to come home. Aria nosed the aircraft down, angled through the digital canyon, the sim responding violently to the G-forces. 5 GS, 6 GS, warning lights. Vision dimming. She breathed in, 4 counts. Held 4 counts. Out 4 counts. Then she whispered, "I'm not here to survive. I'm here to bring them home." The urban canyon blurred past like streaks of ash and fire. Skyscraper silhouettes towered above Aria's sim aircraft, their edges razor-thin, each corner a trap. One miscalculation. Too sharp an angle, too wide a turn, and the simulation would end in instant failure. Virtual civilian casualties, 0 extraction, and a permanent mark on her record. But she wasn't aiming to scrape by. She was aiming to thread the needle. She'd studied this descent 100 times, on borrowed laptop sims, bootleg training files, and homemade models constructed out of cereal boxes and paper clips. When other cadets were out partying on Fridays, she'd be in the soundproof sim bay at 0200, practicing her own descent variants. 6 of them. She called this one the Feather Fall. In the control room, Morales' voice was hushed. "She's doing it backwards." "What?" asked another technician, leaning in. "She's inverted the descent vector. She's using Hydra's blind spot protocol to force the extraction point to shift position. She's changing the mission parameters in real time." Commander Hart folded his arms. "That's what makes her dangerous." Down in Hangar 5, Gator was leaning so far into the telemetry screen his nose nearly touched it. "No way. No damn way." Aria's aircraft corkscrewed down through the canyon, engines throttled low to reduce sonic footprint. Midway through, she rotated her yaw vector 27 degrees off-axis, a trick her father had once used to confuse heat-locking missiles in Kandahar. It bought her just enough time to re-establish communications, even within the simulation's intentional blackout zone. "Ghost to control." Her voice came through the simulation channel, calm and steady. "Extract target locked. Final descent. ETA 17 seconds. Morales blinked. She just reactivated the evac beacon, without NAV or satellite feed. That's not in the sim manual. She built her own procedure. Hart murmured. Aria's fingers danced over the controls, throttling down as buildings narrowed to 20-foot gaps. No HUD. No radar. Only her instincts. She was flying blind. But every breath, every sound, every flicker of light had been burned into her muscle memory. 4 seconds, she said aloud, to herself now. 3. A pulse of light marked the evac zone, a rooftop pad no wider than a shipping container. A half-second to line it up. 2. She killed her speed, angled the flaps manually, something almost no one did anymore, and reverse thrust. 1. The sim blinked to black. Simulation complete. The system AI confirmed. Mission success. Civilian impact 0. Extraction successful. Time 16:41. Total silence in the control room. Then the clapping started. Hart. Then Morales. Then every tech on deck. In Hangar 5, Gator stood frozen. She beat me? No, said a voice behind him. It was Colonel Rourke, descending the stairs from the observation platform. She didn't just beat you. She rewrote the sim. Back inside the simulator bay, the cockpit hatch hissed open. Aria climbed down with the calm of someone who had just completed a routine training mission. No swagger. No grin. Just clarity. Morales met her at the bottom. Ma'am, you just broke 6 internal benchmarks and created a flight profile that's being flagged for doctrinal review. You know what that means? She nodded. They'll want to test it. He blinked. No. They'll want to teach it. Hart stepped forward, eyes narrowed in approval. Lieutenant Kim. Report to debriefing. Immediately. Yes, sir. And Ghost? Yes? That wasn't a simulation. That was a statement. She nodded once and walked off. Alone. But no longer invisible. Great, since we're now wrapping it up, I'll pivot and create a closing arc that brings Aria Kim's journey to a powerful and emotional conclusion. We'll keep the tone consistent, grounded, inspiring, legacy-focused, and richly detailed. This final section will serve as a multi-part wrap-up in place of the originally planned 50 sections, but still with the same emotional depth, just more condensed to honor your decision to end the project early. 3 days later, Lieutenant Aria Kim stood in front of the mission wall inside Falcon Ridge's Strategic Operations building. Next to her photo, recently mounted, was a new plaque. It bore her call sign, her SIM score, and a designation the Air Force hadn't given in years. Doctrine Innovator, Live Scenario Approved. She stared at it only briefly. Long enough to recognize the moment, not long enough to linger. Behind her, Commander Hart approached quietly, holding a sealed folder. This came down from Langley, he said, offering it without ceremony. She took it. Opened it. Inside, deployment orders. Forward Air Command, Alaska Operations Division. High-risk rescue. Real missions. Real consequences. You don't need to prove anything anymore, Hart said. Aria shook her head. This isn't about proving. He raised a brow. It's about continuing. He flew his missions to bring people home. So will I. Hart didn't speak for a while. Finally, he nodded. You'll be the quietest damn legend we've ever had. She almost smiled. Almost. Her flight out of Nevada left just after sunrise. As the jet banked toward the north horizon, Aria sat alone, her journal resting in her lap, one gloved hand holding her father's dog tag. The same one she'd worn every day since she was 12. She turned the metal over in her palm and whispered, Still with me? A breeze flicked past her cheek, cold from the open bay. She took that as a yes. 2 months later, on a snowy mountain ridge in Denali National Park, during a classified night extraction in whiteout conditions, a squad of special operators watched a lone aircraft descend through impossible winds, visibility 0, hostile territory below. When the pilot landed and opened the rear door, the lead operator stared. Your ghost? He asked. Aria nodded once. Let's get you home. And after that, they didn't mock the name anymore. They called her Ghost because she never announced herself, she just showed up when it mattered. Like the wind over a battlefield. Like a whisper in the jet stream. Like a memory that refused to die. If you believe quiet strength isn't weakness, but legacy, follow these stories. Because sometimes, the ones they overlook become the ones they trust when everything else falls apart.